Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the WCEG Network, where we speak life into the community. You can watch us live on your smart TV. Or by going into YouTube and clicking in their WCEG Network. I am Norman A. Carter Jr., your show host for Issues and Answers. And for the next hour or so, I will be with you with two very, very special guests. We are the worldwide community group where we speak life into the community. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and on Instagram at WCEG underscore talk underscore radio, or simply go to at WCEG Network. Last but not least, the topics and opinions discussed on this show are mine, because I have strong ones, and of our very, very, very special guest today, and not the opinions of the WCEG Network. Thank you all for your continued support and for tuning into us here on Issues and Answers on the WCEG Network. I am so excited today. I have two fantastic guests, and that is not an exaggeration. That is not hyperbole. That is just plain old fact, folks. We've got some candidates for office here in the state of Georgia. And while their issues and concerns are particularly germane to the state of Georgia, they are causes and concerns that resonate throughout this country. So wherever you are in the US of A, Great Britain, Australia, Canada, or Mexico, these concerns can and do pertain to you. Our first guest during our program will be Miss Triana Arnold James, who's running for Senate District 30 of Georgia. And then we'll also have, on the second portion of our program, Ms. Dorothy Piedrahita, who is running for the Board of Commissioners in Newton County's 5th District. Welcome, ladies. Welcome to Issues and Answers.
Thank you.
Glad to have you. Look at that wonderful smiling face there from Miss Triana Arnold James. Love it, love it, love it. I'm going to begin so we could have some order here, but feel free to jump at anybody at any time. But I'd like to start off with Miss Triana Arnold James, who we featured on our program just a few weeks ago as she was during her initial run for the Senate District 30 of Georgia. And she came out in a very close runoff, one of the winners, and she'll be in the August 11th runoff election for the Senate District 30 of Georgia. Ms. James, are you still with us? We're having a little technical problem here. So for those of you who were not here on our program on the 30th, or a few weeks ago, I'd just like to remind you that Mrs. James is running for the 30th Senate District of Georgia.
Yes, you dropped off.
which includes portions of Carrollton and I think portions of Fulton County. She'll correct me when I come on. She is the former Mrs. Georgia, and she has been active in Georgia politics since her time as Mrs. Georgia. She's been active in both the Senate and the in the entire legislature of Georgia, getting certain bills passed. And we are just lucky and happy to have her with us today. I've been told that she is tuning back in. You know, we are in this super duper technical age with all these new fantangled gadgets. And sometimes these things do occur where people just drop off mysteriously. You know, these companies like Zoom and Facebook and and several of these other companies, they have their little glitches that they're still trying to work out, because none of these companies foresaw the COVID-19 pandemic, and the high usage that these technologies would be used by churches, by radio stations, by TV stations, by so many other people. So while we're waiting for Miss Arnold James to rejoin us, I would like to just add for a minute or two. I don't want to use up all my juice for my second half hour, but we do have Miss Dorothy Piedrahita with us. And she, in my book, as I went over her resume, is really an American hero. She's been an activist for years, years. So her throwing her hat into the political ring is probably well overdue, well overdue. So we'll be looking forward to jumping into her, and we may have to change our efforts around a little bit as we await for Miss Arnold to come in. Miss Piedrahita, are you with us in sound as well as video right now?
Yes, I am, and I'm
Oh,
also fighting bugs in my yard.
oh my goodness. Well, maybe we should just jump right in.
Oh yeah, I have the spray. Oh yeah.
Well, let me while we're awaiting Miss Arnold to come back in.
Yes.
I just like to go over a little bit over your resume, and I'm sure you can speak about you a lot more better than I can. But it seemed as though your activism goes back to your college days at the Alabama State College. Would I be correct?
Well, it went back. Let's see. Let's see. At the age of 9, during the Montgomery bus boycott.
Oh my goodness.
My family's from Montgomery, Alabama, and they were, um, like other individuals in the city of Montgomery involved in that. And so at the age of 9, I remember so vividly when Dr. King came to our church, Hope Street Baptist Church on Hope Street in Montgomery. And I was a little girl, I was like 9 years old, and I was sitting right on the front pew. I always liked to sit on the front. I was never a kid who liked the back. And after the speech was over, Dr. King came down from the pulpit and picked me up. And what I remembered about him, his hands were so soft. And years later, I got an opportunity to meet his son, the one that lives in Atlanta now. His hands are also soft.
Mm-hmm.
But I helped make sandwiches with Mrs. Georgia Gilmore in Montgomery, Alabama. My aunt Ethel Temple. I would ride with my dad in his '55 Chevrolet, taking people back and forth. So I started early, and I never have stopped. And then years later at Alabama State, when I walked on campus, Montgomery's my home, and no, something's wrong here. The buildings at the University of Alabama weren't the same. They weren't like ours.
Mm-hmm.
So the activism started, and in high school, it just, went on from there, and it never has stopped. And why should I?
Absolutely.
Why should I? My dad fought in World War II. So we wouldn't have to deal with Nazism in the United States of America. And today we find ourselves in a situation that it seems like every 50 years, African Americans have to go in and fight for what is rightfully ours. And my dad would turn over in his grave if he thought I wasn't doing my part. Yes, Dad, I'm doing my part.
All right. All right. In fact, for our listeners and viewers who, I remember seeing a very emotional, there's a video of the children participating in Montgomery, Alabama. I watched that a couple of months ago, And it was very, very, very inspiring. So
Yes, yes. And are you from Alabama? Where's your home originally?
I am from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Ah,
Carpetbagger, they might call me.
well, I know you're the interviewer, but I wanted to know a little bit more myself. But
Yeah.
you're right that that time in our history was very turbulent. And they've been turbulent ever since we've been here, and it's getting worse. But I'm glad to know someone from that Bell City.
Yes, thank you, thank you,
You're
and
welcome.
I am honored to know you. I'm telling you, I was bubbling over with joy as I read your resume, and I look at if I'm jumping back and forth here, excuse me, but Ms. Arnold James also a longtime activist
That's good.
in the state of Georgia, and
Hmm.
Ms. Arnold, could you just give us a little brief background for those of us who didn't have the pleasure of listening to you on our last broadcast about your activism, which goes back probably to your college days or before also, correct?
Yes, before, and thank you so much for having me back. I'm not at a protest today.
I
I'm
was going to
actually
get to that.
sitting
Yeah,
there.
yeah, I was going to get to that.
But for those that just a little bit about me, I spent over 20 years in the United States Army. That's between active duty and reserve, and like you said, it goes back to actually, well, before that, I call myself a new generation suffragist. My great grandmother was a suffragist, and my mother used to, well, she fed the community, and very active during the 60s. And for a long time, I mean, I was born and raised in Cobb County, Georgia. And, for a long time, a lot of people are, you have to say Cobb County or Marietta. They really didn't know anything about Smyrna. And that's where I was born, in Smyrna, and I was raised partly between Georgia and Ohio. And then I actually graduated from high school at 16 and then left for the Army at 17 and also college at the same time. I'm
Wow.
alumni of Morris Brown College. So, and I can remember back, yeah, I heard you all talking a little bit, but one of my first protests was down in Forsyth, Georgia, when Oprah came.
I remember
And
watching that.
and
Uh-huh.
they put us all on a bus, and we were saying Black Lives Matter back then. We were saying that my life mattered, that my place in the world mattered. But that was like one of my very first active protests. I remember sitting on the sideline with my grandmother and my aunts and uncle. They used to march up and down Atlanta Road, with the VFW, the military people, and I remember seeing them with their white on, and my grandmother actually brought that back to my recollection before she passed, when she was talking about what was going on in Smyrna, and even during the Smyrna riot, she was telling me about that. But of course, I wasn't born, and like I said, my very first active protest was Forsyth, Georgia, when Oprah came, and the whole black and white issues that was going on there. But thank God, Forsyth has changed a lot.
Yes.
I think someone that you had on yesterday, Daniel Blackman, is from Forsyth. So
Okay, that's great. That's great. Again, both of these candidates, my listeners, they are in elections that are coming off on August 11th. Am I correct? Both of you?
yes,
That's
And
correct.
and I just like to say to all of our listeners that these runoff elections are usually decided by small margins of votes. So please, every vote counts. Don't think that yours does not. If where possible, if you can mail it in, mail it in. But if you want to go and make yourself known and take a stand, please protect yourself physically and participate in the elections in the normal way by going to vote at your local polling places.
And early voting starts July 20th.
Yes, that's very,
So,
very soon. So that's important. So,
yeah.
and I know both of you have interest in certain things. So I'm going to be going back and forth. Ms. Piedrahita, I see that a lot of the things that you're concerned, among the things that you're concerned about are policing that's on your platform. And I think that both of you share that issue. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Which one of
Ms.
me?
Piedrahita, yes.
Yes, that because that's paramount.
Mhm.
You know, we all realize that law enforcement is important. It's unfortunate that we can't, some people cannot police themselves, but our law enforcement personnel must change the way they operate. There's a program that I've been looking into where they've been doing this, not having police come out, but having a social worker or some other mental health individual to come out instead of the police. Because I've worked, my minor is in psychology, and I've worked with criminals. I've worked with the mentally ill. My major is in sociology. And when you're dealing with that particular population, it's difficult to, when they see a uniform, they get afraid. And then sometimes, and oftentimes, the individual that called for law enforcement, they're afraid because they don't know what's going to happen. So that is one interest that of mine, is to, if I'm allowed to, work with the sheriff department in that, because that's important. And we hire individuals not to kill us or to harm us in any way, but they come from the community. And so therefore, if they come from the community, they have all of the community's goodness and some of the ills of the community. So that is something that I'm very, very interested in, is working with our community sheriff and with the individuals in Newton County, in the 5th district, and the overall Newton County population.
Very good. And Ms. Arnold James, I know that you have interest in that area too.
Yes, I believe that just like my other panelists on the panel, that police reform is really, really important. Community policing. That's making sure that our police department looks like the community, and to have that bridge that gap between the community and the police. So community policing is really important. Number 2, sensitivity training. Some people say, I got a little backlash on from a Karen on another Facebook group that said that police shouldn't be sensitive. Well, I'm not talking about sensitivity as in being weak. I'm talking about sensitivity with regards to, if you're dealing with a mental health person, if you're dealing with domestic violence, if you're dealing with veterans that suffer from PTSD. That's what I'm referring to when I say sensitivity training, whereas you would have a little bit more insight when you're dealing with certain people in a different aspect. And so that's what I mean by, so community policing, sensitivity training, being held accountable. One of the things that they have in why the 3 other officers in Minnesota was not automatically charged. It was 4 officers, but only 1 was charged at first, and then the 3 other came along, is because they have automatic immunity. Well, we need to go do away with automatic immunity. If you're wrong, you're wrong. So, and the no-knock warrants, we need to do away with the no-knock warrants. Here in Georgia, we have a citizen's arrest that was written in 1863. This law was
Right.
written in 1863. That needs to be overturned. Yes, we have the hate crime bill. I applaud the governor for
Right.
signing it immediately and not wasting time on signing the hate crime bill. But at the same time, while they signed the hate crime bill, they snuck in HB 838, which I think we talked about that before. Whereas
Would you explain that for a little bit?
Yes, HB 838 says that a peace officer can sue for damages
That's
if
true.
he is
Injured.
injured in the commission of his duties. So he could sue corporations, he could sue organizations, he could sue leaders of organizations. So this type of law, HB 838, is going to target people like the Black Lives Matter movement. It's going to target organizations like my own, Georgia Now. If we're participating in a rally or organized a rally or a protest or what have you, and an officer is injured, he could sue us for damages, and so the police have their protections. They have recourse, and so what I'm afraid of, this bill is going to target Black and brown organizations that's out here fighting for racial justice and social justice. And so what I have done is did a call to action on my website and on my Facebook page. You can find the call to action, whereas only thing you have to do is click a button, and that'll send an email to the governor telling him to veto this bill. Now the bill it passed the House, it passed the Senate, but it has not been signed by the governor. It's under bill review at this point. That's the status of it. It's under bill review. And so what we need to do, we have now, I believe, less than 30 days while it's under bill review, is to email to the governor and tell him to veto that bill. And that's what, and I can share with you the exact wording of the bill, but that's what it is in essence. It's a bad bill. And there's a lot of bad bills that came across, while we were in session, especially the last day of session. That's going to vastly affect in a negative way Black and brown people. And so that's what we need to. I always do a call to action, and that would be my call to action, is to tell the governor to veto that bill, HB 838, HB 838, to veto that bill.
There doesn't seem to be a lot of publicity going on about that bill. I mean, the only time I've heard about that is from you, and I think that's scary, that we don't have other politicians in the state of Georgia who aren't complaining about this, or that we don't have the media highlighting this issue, which sometimes makes me wonder if there's a subversive element in our media that tends to cover up things like this.
Well,
Right.
I'd like to add something. First
Sure.
of all, when we elect our legislators,
Yes.
we don't hear from them usually until they're running. And that's a
Right.
problem, because what I just listened to, I read that was on, I think it must have been on Facebook, but in fact, I heard something about it on, I believe on one of the channels, because I guess some of the people that we elect, I don't know everybody, and I certainly don't claim to, but they pick and choose what they're going to feed to the community. Okay.
Yes.
Whereas in my position, I don't make bills. I am the executive, and I pay the bills and this kind of thing. But our state legislators, they need to be on top of this, because they are aware of what's going on, and they that it's going to damage not just the Black community, but it impacts us more than it impacts any other community out here. And we're targets. We've been targets. And I'm glad to hear what I just heard, because there are a lot of House bills out here we don't hear anything about.
Well, one of the things that I try to do is be transparent, and not try to be, I am transparent.
Yeah.
I go down to the state capitol on the first day and the last day and every day in between, and I compare the bills that were presented, that's being presented for a session, and then the bills that actually pass, and I try my best to break them down, and especially those that affect us as people, and those that affect veterans, because I am a veteran. And those bills like that, to me, that was like one of those kind of bills that kind of snuck in there. And there are some legislators talking about it, like Park Cannon, Erica Thomas, Sandra Givens, that are talking about it. But we need to talk about it more,
Yes.
especially before this governor, before our governor signs this bill. If he signs it, we have been members of my organization, Georgia Now National Organization for Women, have really like been on top of it, to sending out emails and phone calls to say veto this bill. But we're only one organization. I have seen people out there in front of the governor's mansion saying veto HB 838. But here again, he can veto it. But the problem is while we focus on this hate crime, and we're all excited about this hate crime bill, they sneaking in other bills, and people are not paying attention to those bills that they sneak in, and so it's up to us, whether you're a lawmaker or not, it's advocates for the people, is to bring this information out. And so I have been transparent. When I'm elected, I'll be transparent. I'm bringing it, I'm doing like President Obama did and taking it to the people. I'm going to take it to the people because that's what's important.
Miss Arnold, Mrs. James, what office do you hold at the present time?
I'm an advocate. I'm not an elected official just yet. I plan on being an elected official come November 3rd, 2020, for Senate District 30, which covers Carroll, Douglas, and Paulding. And but I have always been an advocate for the people. I have been fighting for Medicaid expansion on a regular basis since 2012. I think about 2012, 2013. I have been, when they took it out of the Supreme Court, when the Supreme Court took it out of the Affordable Care Act, I started advocating that we need to put it back, that we need to get it back.
My purpose in bringing up that question was just to show our viewing and listening audience that you don't necessarily have to be a candidate per se to be active in going to these meetings, participating in the discussions, and making your view known. And Ms. Piedrahita, I would think that you'd have a similar track record in your activism in Newton County.
That is true. My husband and I moved here in 2008. And for the last 10 years, I've been an advocate for AARP. That's my baby. I live for the tax season to come in because we provide tax service, no charge, and we don't make mistakes to not just citizens of Newton County, but all surrounding counties. And in fact, DeKalb County, they come from all over. And our training is impeccable. As I said, I started in 2008. I'm one of what they call one of those faithful few people. We don't get paid. It's all volunteer, whatever has to do with seniors and children. And that is really important to me. From time to time, I go and I encourage our fire department, because our firemen sometimes are forgotten. I take them food, Here comes that woman with the food again. And so I've done a lot with, I suppose, with children and our seniors, and the general population. But my entire, it's not because I'm a senior. It's because I know that generation, sometimes they're forgotten about. Um, and years ago, I was Meals on Wheels coordinator for the city of Atlanta for over 10 years for North and South Fulton and the city of Atlanta. And I never lost a volunteer. So when I talk about my community services, it goes back. I didn't serve in the military, but I consider being on the forefront in the United States as being in the military, because our children are suffering. Even during this pandemic, I have, when I would get a lot of food from different people, or my neighbors would bring me food stuff, I would take them around in my car and just leave it on the doorstep to make sure people weren't hungry. And then a couple of my neighbors thought I was hungry and they brought me food at my door.
All right.
So, when you do something for people, I'm a humanitarian, it comes back. You don't have to wonder if it's going to come back. So I would say dealing with children, young adults, seniors. So I get into that in all of the human beings. And that's just important to me, because Newton County was not a county that I thought I'd ever be living in.
Okay.
But I used to work here years ago when I was doing research for 2 major universities, and I never thought I would live here. But I didn't come in like gangbusters. You can't come into a community and think you know it all. You've got to study that community. And that's what I've done. And that's the reason I'm running in 2020, because I've studied it.
Excellent.
And I need to be involved in it to be on the inside. Because I'm going to say this, but my husband told me, he said, you don't even know 1,000 people. I said, if I get 10 votes, I'd be happy. I said, all these people that voted for me.
Right.
So they heard something and they saw something in me. And I want to serve the 5th district in any way that I'm. And if I happen not to be the victor, I'm still going to serve the 5th district, and I am going to serve Newton County, and I am planning on winning.
Well, I look at both of your resumes and both of your initial runs for election, and it seems to me that both of you are upsetting the status quo in the areas that you're running for, both in the Senate and definitely out there in Newton County's fifth district. So how do you feel about that? You're more or less trailblazers.
I'm gonna let the younger, prettier woman speak first. I'll pull up the rear.
You are just as beautiful. You are just as beautiful. But yes, and I'm really excited to really throw my hat back into the political arena, because I ran for lieutenant governor in 2017, 2018, and came within 10 points of getting the nomination. And so, for it to be my first time running, that was actually my first time running for office. Like I said, I've been an advocate all my life. And to come within 10 points with no money, no super PACs, just me and my husband and my kids just driving across the state of Georgia, talking to people, and my message resonated. And so and that's why I launched the One Georgia plan, because a lot of people, they don't think about, rural Georgia, but rural Georgia is suffering. The hospitals are closing down, the schools are underperforming. I mean, we have our good days,
mm-hmm.
Like the song say, I have my good days, I have my bad days, but I won't complain,
right.
And we, but we need resources, we need funding. And in District 30, we have had an absent leader. And just like Ms. Dorothy said, I have done, my research. I've seen the things. I've heard the stories. In running for lieutenant governor, you meet so many people, and a lot of my votes came from rural Georgia. And so I look at that as, what, it's time for us to bridge the gap. It's time for us to stop saying, Atlanta and everyone else. We are one Georgia. And,
That's
and,
Correct.
and
right.
just like the metro Atlanta area need resources, rural Georgia need resources as well. A part of my One Georgia plan is asking businesses to come out to rural Georgia. Come out to rural Georgia, hire, build your factory in rural Georgia, hire the people within rural Georgia, and the tax credit I give you, because we're the #1 state to do business because of our tax credit, that I'm asking you to take those tax credit and dump it into the school system in that area. So it's a win-win for everybody. You've contributed to the economy, you've created jobs, and you're helping our school. It's a win-win for everyone. And so I remember someone had a celebrity had tweeted out, well, if Atlanta falls, Georgia will fall. And I had to tweet him and say, no, that is so not true. You know, it's rural Georgia that's keeping Georgia pumping, keeping
Yes.
Georgia running, and yet still resources are not flowing to us. And I consider myself in the rural area, which is Carroll, like I said, Carroll, Douglas, and Paulden. But if you go out to Bremen, you go out to Temple, which is a part of my district, you'll see, and that's why I invite everybody, go down to the state capitol, come out to my area and see what I'm talking about. Listen to the stories. And if your heart is not breaking, then I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Okay. If
Yeah.
your heart is not breaking, then you're not paying attention.
Mhm.
And in the district, like I said, we've had an absent leader, and it's time for us to have leadership that's going to show up and show up for the people. And I get mad about it, and I've already been deemed the angry Black woman. So but here's but here's
Okay.
why I'm angry. These are the
Mhm.
reasons why I'm angry. And so if you want to give me that title, then come out to my district and you will be angry too. That's all I'm asking. And people, get out, come out and vote. We don't like to go vote again. We like to vote for the top of the ticket and not go down ballot.
Mhm.
And I'm asking
Mhm.
everybody to
Mhm.
come out and vote again. It'll take a few minutes of your time. Wear your mask. If you got to have on gloves, if you're asymptomatic, do an absentee ballot. These are things that are available that we can do. But the most important thing, in other than you keeping safe, is to come out and vote. And early voting, like I said, start on July 20th. The actual election is August the 11th, and we need all hands on deck to make sure that you vote for Triana Arnold James
There you
and
go.
send me to the legislator.
And Miss Piedrahita, see there, you wanted to go second, and
Well, like I said, I'll give the young lady. Now here comes wisdom.
all right now.
Um, the only thing that I can say at the age of 16, standing in my bedroom in Montgomery, Alabama, in a 2-bedroom home with my parents, as I said, he was a World War II vet. I prayed for one thing, and that was wisdom. I didn't pray for money because I didn't know about it then, and my parents were taking care of me. I didn't pray for that,
Mhm.
but I have a lot of wisdom. And if you have an ounce of anything, now is not the time. If you write, if you speak, if you contribute, now is not the time to not to go vote.
Correct.
We are in some perilous times now. And as long as there's breath in my body, and when I'm at rest, that's when I'll rest. But right now, I don't have time to rest because I live in the Spring Hill area of Newton County. And
Mhm.
I have learned a lot about the Spring Hill district. It was an area pretty much like my parents' county in Pike County. Black people, that's where Black people were.
Okay.
And the history of this county and Spring Hill is just wonderful. Black people owned land. Even where my home is sitting, that land belonged to a Black man.
Mm.
All up on
Okay.
162 and down 162. It has a history. And unless we tell our history, or unless we have somebody to keep talking to us about our history, we will never know our history. And it's up to us to give this, impart this to the young people, you know, and then to some of our older people, because I still hear people, you know, I don't vote. That vote
Yes.
doesn't help.
Yes.
Okay, all right, then
Yes.
what can I say to you that might change your mind? Well, you know, I'm not registered to vote. Well, it's a little late for this one. But in the
Hmm.
next one, I said, well, why
Hmm.
don't you take a yard sign anyway? Put
Yes.
it in your yard. Somebody passing by your house vote,
Hmm.
and they'll see my yard sign. So I am happy to have been asked to be a part of this afternoon. And it is hot out here. After all, it
Yeah.
is Georgia. The next time I'll go into my air conditioned home without bugs that are biting me. But I
Yeah.
really appreciate it because it, to me, this is what I know I was meant to do.
Amen.
One of the my best attribute is to communicate with people, and I've done that all of my life. And I don't intend to stop. When I die, like I said, I will be at rest, but I'm not at rest right now.
Mm. And my living shall not be in vain.
Exactly.
Yes.
Thank
I,
you so
Amen.
much.
yes. Thank you, Mrs. Piedrahita. And you remind me of my favorite biblical chapter, which is Proverbs 4, which
Okay.
talks heavily about wisdom. And I carry that with me at all times. Wisdom is the principal thing. And I think that that is so much lacking in some of our younger people, and where they need to be to look towards longtime activists such as you two ladies are, who have suffered the slings and arrows of
Mhm.
of civil rights violations, if I might say, the indignities that are heaped upon you, not just because of your race, but just because of your gender. Uh, those type of things that many of our younger people are not aware of, and you seem to be bringing these out in your campaigns. I see both of you are interested in uh, health issues,
Oh
which I think
yes.
is very, very, very important.
That's my first one.
Yes.
Can you going to talk about that for
No,
a
come
second?
on. Yes, come on.
Health
You,
disparities in with people in general, especially people that find themselves without it, and sometimes people in the middle class, they get fired and they lose their health insurance. But it's getting the tests. It's being able to go to a physician when you need to without being afraid that you can't pay the bill.
mhm,
Because see, the American medical situation is that these hospitals are not built like in some other countries.
okay.
We always go when we're sick. Some of these other countries, they stop that. They make sure your diets are correct. And it's almost like the United States is a third world country because of the insurance. It's the premiums are so high. Then the medication is so high. By the time you get to the hospital, the doctor, you know, you might need to have an operation and you just might die. Now, I
Mhm,
know my father was he was a veteran, so he could go to the VA, and then mother had insurance, so he was well taken care of. But look at some of our veterans. I see it constantly. I see it. You know, they don't want to go to the VA, and then they do not have the money to even go to a doctor. And with our females need to have uh 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 uh, tests, diagnostic tests like mammograms or anything that is related to the female body, and men too, because our men sometimes are notorious for not going to the doctor. By the time they get there,
mhm.
it's almost too late. And I'm not speaking to you, sir, but I'm speaking to my family. You know, I have a son, I have a brother, I have a husband, and all we want to, you know, they say we always are after them, but we're after you because we want you to go to a doctor if you can afford it. And we love our men. I would like to take my family and be with them for the rest of their natural lives, but I too want them to to go to see about themselves. And I know I sound like a broken record. You
No.
know, they've been out here, you know, helping me, uh, 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 putting up signs and working with me on Zoom, and
Okay.
just doing and writing for me. So my family is my back, my back. Besides my two birds and my one dog, they're all. My dog goes all the time with me out putting up signs and talking.
Mhm.
So he's volunteering also. So,
Yeah.
but that the health for me is just, you can't do anything without your health. If
Exactly.
you
And
don't have your health, you don't have anything. I don't care if you have a bunion on your foot, you can't walk.
mhm.
And high blood pressure in our community, and diabetes is rampant.
Yes.
And by the time some of us go to the doctor, I mean they're talking amputation. And then our diets, you know, everybody can't be in the country like I am and grow vegetables. Grow
Ah.
the blueberries, the blackberries, and the figs. I can
Mhm.
do that because I'm in the country. So, but health is really most important. And that's what I do. In fact, when I finish, I'm going to go pick some more blueberries before the rain.
My
But
favorite.
health is so important, and our mental stability. You know, I've often said it's a wonder every Black person in America isn't insane because of what we've had to deal with in the United States. And then now it's into our children. Our children don't even want, and that's health. They're
Right.
afraid of the police. You know, their dad's going to get killed. They might get shot.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
and another problem that our communities have is also killing one another. You know,
Ah.
you know, just today, you know, I was reading about what's been going on in the Atlanta area, you know, and that's a sickness. And then we get thrown in jail. We don't get
Mhm.
help there. So all of this is a microcosm of just a pure mess. And it all sometimes can be boiled down to mental illness.
Mhm.
And
Uh,
so that's it.
so Miss
Because
Arnold James, I know you have interest in health issues too. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I know that you
no,
uh, have really been campaigning for women's health in particular.
Yes. Sad to say that my best friend in 2015 gained her wings because of cervical cancer. And so I have been an advocate for cervical cancer awareness. In fact, I started a program named after her called the Susan Jolly Awareness Program, which brings awareness to the prevention impact of cervical cancer. And I have had a day, and I continue to have a day down at the state capitol every January, which is Cervical Cancer Awareness Month. And on the House side, I have a day, and it's like the middle to the end of the month, and I encourage everyone to come down because it is a big deal. And we feed you,
Mhm.
and we bring awareness. And what I did, not this year, no, I did it this year. This COVID-19 kind of threw us all off. But what I did was I did teal roses, and I had teal roses put on each of the legislators' desks on the House side,
Mhm.
to help them to know about cervical cancer awareness and HPV. And so that was the earlier part of the year before the coronavirus shut everybody down. And so on the last day of session, I received the Senate resolution bill, which I'm really happy about. Because now not only do I have a bill on the House side, I have one on the Senate side. And so my husband said, "Well, what are you gonna do now?" I said, "Well, next year I'll go for a joint bill." So
I like
so
that.
I have one on the House side, one on the Senate side. So next year, that's my goal to get a joint bill. But we got to bring more awareness. And the CDC at one point in time had $54 million to bring awareness before this thing up in the White House, before he took away some of the funds from the CDC.
Mhm.
But they
Mhm.
had $54 million to bring awareness to cervical cancer. And a lot of the times the clinics here in the state of Georgia was not promoting or making people aware of HPV and the different vaccinations, the different tests and things like that. But so because of my bills, I partner with the Department of Public Health, with the Cancer Consortium, with Northside Medical Association, to bring awareness to this. So we go and we bring in different people from different organizations that are HPV champions, that are bringing awareness to cervical cancer. And it's so important that we do this. And the reason, another thing, and I'll say this real quickly, my best friend Susan Jolly, she was a busy bee. Mm-hmm. And she does what we all do as women. We put everybody on the front burner and put our health on the back burner. So what I did, because of her being a busy, and myself being a busy bee, I started the Pencil Me In Challenge. And the Pencil Me In Challenge is I go around the state of Georgia, outside of campaigning, this is what I do on a regular basis. I challenge women, especially women of color, to pencil yourself in. And I was giving out pencils and calendars, and they are to pencil themselves in. Now, that's not the challenge. The challenge is you can't cancel it. That's the challenge. Correct. And a lot of times we say, I'll get to it, I get to it. And we end up, and cervical cancer can matriculate over 20 years, especially if you have an abnormal pap smear, and you don't go back. You take the antibiotics, but you don't do anything else. And so what we encourage everyone to do is, number one, pencil yourself in. Number two, if you get an abnormal pap smear, is not only take the antibiotics, but go back and get the follow-up, do a follow-up like that. And so, so that's what we do when it comes to women health. And then it branches out to a whole bunch of things. Hepatitis C, diabetes, high blood pressure, and things like that, to make sure that we are putting our health on the front burner and not the back burner. And the third thing I want to say is July is Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. Because it's important that we take care of our mental health as well. Because, like you said, a lot of us really, it's not just veterans suffering from PTSD, but a lot of minorities are suffering from PTSD. They may not want to call it that, or may not want to put a name on it, but we do, and most of the time, who do we go to? Our pastor. We sit and we talk to our pastor, but sometimes we need therapeutic counseling as well to keep our mental health healthy. So that's what I'm also encouraging everyone to do, is your mental health, keep it healthy. We need to keep it safe, keep ourselves safe as in wearing our mask, but we also need to make sure that our mind is healthy. And we'll be talking about that on July the 11th at a rally down at Morris Brown, my alma mater, on at 1 o'clock on July the 11th. We're encouraging everyone to come down and get the information and hear from our speakers, and just fellowship with us to bring about healthiness when it comes to your mind.
I would just like to jump in, because both of you brought up the mental health issue. And for those of us who don't think that that's important, especially PTSD, I'd like you to think about the young man who was just killed by the police somewhere out there in the Midwest. I can't remember the name of the state.
Oh, I remember.
Where they actually choked the man. And while he was being approached by the police officers, he told them that he had a problem with people being close to him. And this is a form of PTSD. This is very common. And I don't know where. I'm a former police officer, and I know that we were at some point trained in respecting the distance between people. You need to respect that. And people with mental health issues are extremely sensitive to to proximity. So something that's very prevalent in our community. And I think it's It's something that's greatly ignored, and I'm so happy to see that both of you ladies, who in no stretch of one's imagination can be mistaken for shrinking violets, are running are running for political office. So I'd like to, as we get towards the end of our program, and we have Miss Piedrahita sitting out there being food for bugs, that
It's raining a little bit, but I'm
yes,
going to stay out here. I could use
yeah,
it.
yeah.
I can.
I just want to know if you candidates would like to close out with about 1 or 2 minutes closing remarks about your campaign. And whoever
Sure.
wants to jump in first, Miss James, since you would you
Okay. Okay. Thank you again, Norman, and Penny. Thank you so much for having me again. Like I said, I'm indoors. I'm not at a rally like I was last time, but it was interesting to be boots on the ground and to actually see what was going on with the police department and with our with the people. I love being with the people. I'm Triana Arnold James, running to be your state senator for District 30, which covers Carroll, Douglas, and Paulden. And I encourage everyone to get out and vote. Early registration, early voting starts July 20th. The actual election is August the 11th. If you don't live in the district, I'm pretty sure you know someone that does live in the district. And I just encourage you to get out and vote and help me to bridge the gap with my One Georgia plan. I guarantee you that it's going to be better for the district and for the state of Georgia. And God bless each and every one of you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Piedrahita, thank you very much.
Thank you, and I'm voting for you. You know what they say, the dead vote, and then we create votes. I'm voting for you.
Fantastic.
Yes. I just would like to give honor to everybody that's working with me.
You're a little off camera.
My family.
There you go. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, no, you were your facial.
Yes, and to all of the people, but I couldn't work and do what I do if I didn't believe in that there is someone above telling me that I'm doing the right thing. Because this isn't me. You know, this it's not me speaking through me. It's me speaking for humanity and wanting to do her part. The 5th district, like I said, it's so historical that it to me, they've been waiting, because I've even spoken to a lot of voters. They didn't even know who the commissioner was. What does a commissioner do?
Okay.
You know, so another part of what I'm keen on is to educate the voters, the individuals who want me to educate them and the ones who do not want me. Because if you do not know, you can't do better.
This is true.
And so I know I was sent to Newton County for a reason other than planting a garden in my snake infested backyard and front yard. But laying all that aside, I want to serve. I want the people in the 5th district to understand that they have rights. They can come to the meetings. They should be able to ask questions. My phone line will always be open. My email will be open. My door will be open, because it's important. And it's also, it's important for our children.
Yes.
You know, we must continue to educate our children. And I would love for the children to learn about their county government.
Excellent.
And and be a part of the process and understand what a commission does and what a commissioner cannot do, because we must follow the state state mandates. That's important. So I'm just here to serve, and I want to continue to serve, and I appreciate being on the program. Had a little trouble earlier, but I seem to buckle down, and I got on Zoom, and I just want to thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank WCEG WCEG before because you're doing a service to the Metro Atlanta community. And thank you so very much.
Thank you very much. I'd like to once again thank both of you candidates for joining us. We had Ms. Triana Arnold James running for the 30th District's Senate seat, and Mrs. Dorothy Piedrahita, who's running for the Newton County 5th District Board of Commissioners. And as I promised you earlier, and we did not disappoint you, their concerns even have national implications, even though they're locally homegrown. Well, yeah, basically homegrown here in Georgia. So ladies, I really, really thank you for joining us today, participating in what turned out to be a very, very lively program, unscripted, and I kind of like it that way. Turned out very good. So,
Me
so
too.
thank you all
Be
for
sure be sure when you come outside, get the spray.
I've got mine.
Okay. Thank you
So
so
thank
very
you all
much.
for joining us on the
Okay, my pleasure.
WCEG
Thank you.
Network. And as I always say, folks, to my listening audience, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. So thank you all for joining us on WCEG. Enjoy your July. Hope you had a great weekend. Peace out.
Peace
Stay
out.
dry.
And
Thank you.
thank
Stay
you,
cool.
Mr. Norman, and
Thank
happy
you.
birthday to Mr. Norman again. Happy birthday
Thank you.
to you. And
Thank
thank
you.
you for taking time off on your birthday to host the show today. Thank you.
I enjoyed myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, ladies. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, and happy birthday as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much.